Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, the irony of capitalism is that you need to be able to spend money in order to be able to make money that you can use to be able to do good things and change the world. You need a profit incentive in order to drive progress and innovation, in order to stay ahead of the curve of antimicrobial resistance, or being ahead of all of these mutations of COVID, swine flu, bird flu, in order to be able to protect and preserve humanity. That is to say that in a vacuum or in debate land, we agree with side gov, right? I wish we could all not work, stay at home, chill na lang, debate, and dance into the sunset and hope that things will work out. But we live in a world with financial and economic reality wherein a lot of the things that the previous speaker mentioned, which was the heart of my POI, things like research, things like paying doctors, things like paying your staff, things like being able to afford and buy the equipment you need for a hospital, costs a lot of money. And if it were non-profit, meaning you don't charge higher and you just sell things at cost, you no longer have an incentive for people to do what they want to do. Because if you think about it, as an average reasonable person, a doctor spends what? 8 to 12 years of specialization and studying and dumps in hundreds of thousands of pesos and even go into student debt to be able to pay for their education. But if the system does not allow a profit incentive, how are we going to pay them something decent? It might become a charity, ladies and gentlemen, and instead of having like a brain drain of them going overseas, we're gonna have a shortage of doctors and people being able to treat individuals like nurses, and the healthcare system in and of itself gets wrecked. But let's be charitable, because I'm gonna engage them on their best case. Meaning, even if these things were all fine and well, the question becomes, how are we able to scale and grow to be able to help our growing population and the changing complexity of healthcare that make it more different? A couple of features of our model which we think are relevant for this debate. The first is, we think that we have to understand that it's ultimately these particular profit incentives that ultimately enable people to be able to have the money to be able to have progress. Meaning, what is our alternative? We want to support status quo, wherein we have a fair mix of for-profit hospitals and non-profit hospitals like PGH and the health heart centers and lung centers, which are largely dictated and run by the particular government. Meaning, we're completely fine to have counter fiat to explain and defend status quo with, of course, other improvements, including but not limited to A bigger budget from pork barrel or confidential funds or whatever being directly placed to the Department of Health. B, having certain incentive structures such as tax breaks and tax cuts and direct subsidies for public hospitals. Because I think their side is correct that we want to be able to have more accessibility and maybe even more affordable medicine for our Filipino people. C, and lastly, is an increase in corporate taxes for private hospitals. The likes of Makati Medical Center, who is owned by Manny Pangilinan, the same guy who owns PLDT, or the St. Luke's Medical Corporation, of which is held by the Serranos and a certain board of individuals. Third and lastly, what exactly is profit? Because it's not as simple as profit equals bad, non-profit equals good. Profit is what uniquely lubricates the capital system in order to allow people a chance to be able to earn, and this applies on an individual level of doctors grinding it out because they know someday they can earn above minimum wage and be able to make their quality of life better, and also on an institutional level wherein absent this particular profit incentive, we wouldn't have the likes of St. Luke's and Makati Medical Center who paved the way for healthcare and research for the entire Philippines. meaning we're completely fine that some urban centers with more traffic and volume might be better or might have more funding and more money. But the reality is, in the long term, on average, Filipino or hospitals all around the world are going to be significantly better because of a trickle-down effect of those particular for-profit hospitals who are able to lead vaccine treatment and research, as well as being able to be on the front line of things like COVID and future pandemics if they might happen. The path to victory of our side is very simple. A, in terms of accessibility, it's uniquely through a profit incentive that you create an incentive for corporations and other entities to be able to build hospitals all over the country and all over the world, because now they're able to service particular markets and be able to create a mutually beneficial incentive structure of, hey, go here, we're gonna give you a raise. Or, hello, mga Kadavao, mga Kacebu, we're gonna open a new center here so you don't have to go all the way to Manila to be able to have your heart checked if you have things like myocarditis or hypertension or even instances of rare particular cancer. The second path to victory is increasing the quality of healthcare, which we think only exists when you have a capitalist incentive structure to do things like research and even go abroad to be able to learn the best tricks to be able to have Western medicine applicable to us. The latest things in terms of gene treatment, the latest things in terms of cosmetic surgery, etc., to be able to help other people, because absent that, and we didn't have money, no one's gonna research those things and become at the mercy of Mother Nature and the world not wrecking us with these diseases. Lastly, and most importantly, is being able to cater to particular individuals and be able to improve the quality of life of people when we're able to future-proof and be able to stay ahead of the curve. Stay ahead of the curve of antimicrobial resistance, stay ahead of the curve of vaccine treatment, and you need a profit incentive for that to happen. For all of these reasons, we are very proud to stand on side negative. Thank you.